Morning, everybody. I would like to call the Ways and Means Committee meeting on June 4th, 2024 to order. It is 10:02. Can I please have everybody raise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Thank you. Petra, please, your roll call.
Chairman Heinz-Felder.
Here.
Mayor Bell.
Here.
Farrell.
Here.
Thorson. Here. Ms. Schuster. Here.
Okay, thank you, Petra. First agenda item is the approval of meeting minutes for the April 2nd meeting of the Ways and Means this year. Under tab 1, can I please have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Petra, I have two little things that I will give you later. Three, actually, but little ones. All right. Everybody in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Second topic under this Chapter 4 is the meeting minutes of the Ways and Means Committee meeting on May 7th, 2024. Can I please have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? No? Everybody in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Both meeting minutes are approved as they are. With, again, Petra, also for the second one, I have just a few little typos, nothing major to consider. Moving on to citizen comments. Anybody? Nope. No citizens, thank you. No old business, starting with new business under tab number 3, review and recommendation to the town council for approval of the new building service fee schedule. Bruce.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Heisenfelder and the committee. In discussion of the proposal for new permit fees, okay, just a second, trying to get the presentation up. There we go. The staff took a hard look at our current permit fees, and not so much the structure, but the fees themselves. The fees would apply to all new construction projects as well as renovations, and when I speak of renovations, I'm including any additions with that. The fees that remain the same are what we refer to as subcontractor trade fees. Those aren't changing. So the only thing we're looking at is increasing the permit fees for new construction and renovation projects. The snippet here is just our current permit fee structure. As you can see right now, we're looking at, if you go all the way down to where it's $5,001 and up, we're looking at changing that $3.50 per thousand to actually $6 per thousand to better align ourselves with communities that perform basically the same type of construction that we are currently doing on Kiawah Island. How do we compare? Taking an average of the 10 communities we looked at from Hilton Head to Myrtle Beach, as you can see, using a base price for a project of $4 million, that cost for us would be $20,500, and as you see, the average cost for the 10 communities is well over that at $25,574. The low was Edisto Beach at $13,042.50. The high being Sullivan's Island at $45,719. And the next slide just shows the breakdown of all the communities that we analyzed for our research. And as you can see where we are, Kiawah is 8th on the list as far as our permit fees go.
And this is all based on that 4 million?
It's all based on the $4 million. So, as I stated, currently we charge $3.50 per thousand for any permits over $500,000. We add in $1,985 for the first 500,000. And like I said, what I'm proposing is to change that to $6 per thousand, which would roughly put us in at $15,639.30 in increase. In your packets, you will see that, I'm assuming it was included, that that's about a 73% increase. Should we agree with the change, that will align us with right under the city of Myrtle Beach as far as our permit fee increases and what everybody else is charging, that, like I said, communities that are pretty much similar to the type of construction that we do on Kiawah Island. So with the change, our actual cost for a $4 million project would be $36,239.90. The proposed fee structure was also, the complete fee structure is in your tab, I believe under tab 3. If you want to see the entire structure, like I said, the subcontractor permit fees are not being changed at all. This is just building permit fees for renovations and new projects. There is one other additional change we would like to make. Currently, our reinspection fees are at $55 per reinspection fee. And to be quite honest, reinspection fees, if we go out, usually we don't charge for the first 2 inspections. If we go out and we deny your inspection the first time, you call us back, we go out the second time. It's not quite right yet. We still don't charge you, but if we go out a third time and it's still not right, you're going to get a reinspection fee. And like I said, stating now, our reinspection fees are only $55. We'd like to change that to $250. And hopefully we can eliminate our third trip out. Hopefully with the help of the committee and council's approval, we'll be able to bridge the gap in regards to our permit fee structure and put us in line with other communities, like I said, that do the same type of construction. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Can I please have a motion to recommend to Town Council the new building services fee schedule?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion, questions for Bruce? I have a few, Bruce.
I do too. Bruce, can you go back to the first slide you showed? Mine is cut off, so I'm missing something, and I have a question for you about.
The permit fee schedule?
Yeah, that's kind of cut off too.
Yeah, it's the full schedule is actually in your tab.
It's
Yeah,
cut
but
off in the book.
Mine's cut off.
It's
too.
cut off in the book, too?
Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah.
okay,
If you
I
go-
can still ask the question. So my
Yeah.
question is, the only change, thank you. I think I heard you say the only change is on the $500,000 and up?
No, actually, the change is going to affect, we're changing all the permit fee schedule for building permits, starting with $1,000 and less will not change, but below that, where you see $55 on the current,
Yep.
all that's going to change to $6 per thousand, all the way through.
Okay,
So if you look at the proposed, it's showing $6 per thousand.
sorry, I misunderstood. Thank you. I thought it was only over 500,000. Yeah, it changed.
Yeah, I just used that for an example.
Thank you.
More questions?
Do the other communities use the same kind of breakdown? That is the 500,000, they do a 1985 or similar for the first 500,000, and then it's $6 per thousand?
They do a similar breakdown. So what the 1985 is, if you went through from $1,000 all the way down. And you end up, in our schedule, you'll end up in 1985 for the first 500,000. They have a similar breakdown based on what their fee structure is. It's broken down the same way. So they charge X amount of dollars for, you know, a $1,000 permit's going to have a flat fee. And then once you get beyond $1,000, it's broken down to so much per thousand.
But what you're saying is the starting numbers might be different, but the math is the same.
The math is the same.
Okay.
And this would take effect as of when? I assume it would not apply to anything that has already had a building permit issued, so just simply from this point going forward, assuming the town council adopts it, it would be the new permit fee schedule. So we've got maybe
Yeah.
how many few hundred homes remaining, single-family homes, this would apply to, at least for new construction?
Yeah,
Quite a
so
few.
it's going to apply to single-family homes.
Yep. And-
Any renovations or additions to those homes, and also new commercial construction.
So
Okay,
the
and that is-
largest impact would be the high dollar. So have we done any estimate, Dorota, of what the potential revenue impact of this would be?
I have not
Yeah,
yet, but
we have not.
Okay, it would be not insignificant, I would think.
Yeah. So to answer your question, the permit fees wouldn't go, so if the proposal's accepted by council, there will be a date when that ordinance goes into effect. So any permits that were applied for after that date would then be affected by this change.
All right, so Bruce, for me, just two clarification questions. So when you say total valuation, this is the proposed, so I have a renovation project, the contractor, gives me a quote for 100,000, that's your basis.
Correct. So
So, but then I make changes along the way, and my whole project is 150,000. What happens?
So anytime there's an additional item to a scope of work, that contractor has to submit to us for approval before before he can make those changes. And especially, we're looking if there's structural changes, if it's a dollar amount, then we just increase that permit fee to whatever that dollar amount is.
Yeah, but if I change something within the scope, so for example, the first submitted quote was a sliding door, right? And then I changed that to a folding door, which increases the cost by 50% for that particular door. How is that reflected?
For a door, we probably wouldn't do anything, to be perfectly honest.
Or if I have a
But if
chandelier and I
it's a
go crazy with
major-
a chandelier and it costs double or triple, you guys will not?
No,
Okay,
no.
got it.
We're talking about if there's a major change
Okay,
to
that's fine.
that.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to have that clarification. And then second clarification question is, you said that you're only changing the $6 from the
Yeah,
$3.50, right? And the inspection fees, but you're also changing the plumbing permit fee, the gas permit fee, the other permit fees, and the appeal application fees. Is that correct?
I didn't think we had made a change to those.
Well, I compared
Apparently
before and
we
after,
did.
so I think you did, but,
We
which
did.
is fine, I just wanted to clarify. So my last question, and the real question is, comparing to other municipalities is a valid approach, but I always look at, what is the real workload behind these costs, right? So, because that's, for me, the only justification for a community member to say we are raising it because, we, A, spend more time, and B, we have higher cost for employees and vehicles and gas and whatever, right? So that would be my only justification. So how would you explain this? So do I need to assume that until today, if you would compare all the income from the permit cost, from the permits and the cost of your department in total, there's a misalignment, or how would I need to understand that?
I think currently we're misaligned with the valuation of construction cost as a whole. As far as the time involved to do a review, as far as a single-family home's considered, hasn't really changed. The time is what it is. When you start talking about multifamily projects and commercial projects, that's a whole nother ball of wax, and I think that's where we're lacking. As far as the time that's involved to do those reviews, we're talking months. I think that's where we fall short.
Okay, so you would basically say for a single-family home, we only would need to reflect, our inflation cost, so to speak.
Right.
But for commercial projects, it has become far more complex. I guess this has to do with a lot of the codes that have changed over time, where we are basically spending more time and money than currently a developer would pay you. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if I can share with the council, since I'm doing this, I like your approach, because personally I can see we're doing a full renovation. And so I have friends who've done like a bathroom and a den. And I can see that the time to review the bath and the den is very different from my project, where I'm putting a new roof on, I'm having some footers poured, I've got some structural engineering that's gonna be done because we're gonna hang a couple of beams and there's steel involved. So I think this is appropriate, way to think about this, with one caveat, is if I take that example and expand it to doing the Cape, I'm sure there's a lot more involved in looking at, and I'm sorry to pick on the Cape, let's pick just a theoretical, large, multifamily construction project in the future. I'm not sure that the breakdown is appropriate for that. There probably ought to be some other, in my mind, it's a question, should there be another breakdown for, say, like 5 million and above, or 10 million and above, where it's even a lot more complicated, and maybe we have to call in other engineers to help us with stormwater management or things like that. This appears to be all residential backed in terms of your research, which is great. I'm just asking a question, could there or should there be another break point where commercial is a lot more complicated and thus takes more time and should be charged a higher fee? Does that make sense? That was a long question.
No, it makes great sense, and it's something that we really had not thought about. But in reality, you're actually right. There should be, the permit fee schedule should be advanced.
I love it when somebody says, I'm actually right. They're just being right. But
Yeah. No, it should be advanced to include projects of those size.
But what
yes,
would be the difference? So if we would say the next break point is 5 million, as you said, right? The only thing that would really change is the $1,985, the base, right? Everything else would stay the same, correct?
Talking about,
Well, he's
In
saying,
terms
he's
of the math.
assuming you left it the $6 at that higher break point. If you left it at the $6 at that higher break point,
Yes.
that would be correct. If you didn't, if you adjusted, I don't know if that's what Councilmember
that's
Farrell
where I'm
suggested.
going, is the next break
Okay,
point
so you
should
would,
be
you would.
8 or 10 or
Okay,
12
got
or
it.
some
So it's
other
not the
number.
1985, the base
No, sir.
amount, so it's really the $6 that are going to 8 or something?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, and
And-
so
and-
what happens, so let's take, I don't know how the math works out, but let's say a $20 million project. So you have the 1985 for just above the $500,000, right? $500,000 on the current schedule is 1985. And then under the current schedule is $3.50 a thousand. So then you break down the remainder of that, and you're charging $3.50 per thousand for the remainder of, however the math works out, that $20 million. And so you're somewhat covering what you're referring to without adding to that permit fee schedule. You're still somewhat doing that, but if you wanted to be transparent, more transparent, you could add those fields into that permit fee schedule to incorporate those multifamily projects or commercial projects.
Yeah, my thought is, and I think Councilman Belt heard me, is, pick a number above 10 million or above 20 million. It should be, instead of $6 per thousand, it should be, I don't know, pick a number.
It's
whatever,
again,
bigger number.
look, I would then still argue, it should really be based on the time that Bruce and his team spent, right? So what he said earlier, that's for me the indication. So I would propose that we go forward with his application, or his proposal, but give him the task to come back to us, with 1 or 2 or 3 additional categories or valuation brackets,
Breakpoints, yeah.
that really reflect or is fueled by your amount of time that you put into and what you really need to be compensated for.
I think I'm fine with that approach. The only thing I would caution, I guess, or caveat is that it's not, at least from most municipalities, the permit fee schedule is not necessarily just intended to recoup the cost of the operations of the office. It's just like business license fees and everything else. It's a revenue source for the municipality. You'd like to also cover the cost of the services provided, but it also, it's money that goes to the general fund to support other services that don't have fees associated with them.
I think we all understand this, Brett, but I don't think that we are in urgent need, right, to go beyond what is reasonable, right? Neither for single-family home owners nor for commercial projects.
And I agree with that, but I think what Bruce has brought to us today is we're not going beyond reasonable because we're lining up, generally speaking, with what other municipalities do.
Exactly, and similar to Luke's example, I do this in Colorado right now, and your new proposal would actually match up exactly with what I'm paying there. So, I mean, I think there's a good benchmarking base for this, right? But if we are going beyond the 500,000, to $8 or $10, right? I think we want to make sure we make the right decision because maybe 8 is still too low, right? 10 is maybe even still too low. Maybe it needs to be 12. I don't know. So that's where I think, Bruce should look at how much time do I really spend on this, 20 dwelling unit project, and is this reflected in the building permit?
All right, we can do that.
Okay, good.
One last question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Do other municipalities have different schedules for commercial and residential, or are they all one schedule and they just?
That I would have to take a look at. Most municipalities have a breakdown, just like you're seeing here,
Yes, sir.
that basically incorporates commercial, residential, all under one permit fee schedule. Most of what I've looked at doesn't break it out to commercial and multifamily, that type of thing. I'm sure there are some jurisdictions that do, but right now I couldn't tell you who they are.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right.
I just quickly looked up, as an example, the city of Charleston. They do have a breakdown that's separate for residential new construction permits, and then they have a breakdown for everything else. So they do single out, it looks like, new residential construction permits, and then they have another fee schedule for everything else. So I guess some jurisdictions decide they do break it out. And so, for instance, here, based on your conversation, it could be Kiowa has a separate new construction permit, and then that's over a certain value than everything else. But it looks like the city of Charleston, as just a quick example, when I Googled, they separate new residential from everything else.
Thank you.
Well, they have more different type of construction, right? A lot more than we have, so.
So following on, I think what both the chairman and Councilmember Farrell had suggested, it may be worth, I'm fine with approving this, and certainly as applicable to single-family residential, and it does apply to commercial for the time being, but to take another look at and maybe come back to the Ways and Means Committee and Council with a proposed separation of single-family residential and multifamily and commercial in a separate category, and it may warrant a different fee schedule.
Yeah, we can break it out.
With the caveat, unless you, in your research, you find that you're not spending any more time, but I think that's more complicated in commercial because there are different standards, but yeah, I think that's the right thing to do too.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we have a motion to approve the recommendation that Bruce brought forward. So any other questions, discussion? Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so this motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Next agenda item under new business is the review and the recommendation to Town Council for approval of the amendment to the contract with Tetra Tech Incorporated for disaster debris monitoring services under tab 4. Brian.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. So, in the event that the town has a natural disaster, well, depending on the level of that natural disaster, there's some requirements that we have to follow to clean up, and those requirements are coming from the federal government, from FEMA. So the FEMA requires us to have a debris management contractor that will do the physical removal and relocating of any debris. And then further, there's a debris monitoring firm that monitors that debris, so kind of as a checks and balances operation. Those are the requirements that FEMA has. So we have had this contract for debris monitoring with the firm Tetra Tech for the past 2 years. We contracted with them back in 2022. The contract was for 2 years with the option for 2 one-year extensions. We are coming up to the end of their 2-year initial contract term and entering into the time where we have the opportunity to do a 1-year extension. So the action requested, well, before that, I will say that I had a conversation with their supervisor, their manager that works with us. They did tell us that he did tell me that there's no changes to the fee schedule from what's in the proposal. So what we see there is what we will still be expecting to pay if they are executed. And then this town staff is requesting that the Ways and Means Committee recommend entering into this 1-year extension with Tetra Tech. There will be no change to budget or financial data because we don't pay them any money unless they are activated. So there's not going to be any change into the budget for this. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have about this contract.
Thank you, Brian. Can I
Yes, sir.
please have a motion to recommend to town council the approval of this extended contract?
So moved.
Second?
Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Brian, I thought I heard you say that FEMA requires 2 things, a monitoring and a removal,
Yes, sir.
and these guys are just doing monitoring?
Yes, sir. That's correct. We have a separate contract with a debris management firm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Brad, any questions? No, sir. So I have a question as it relates to the service agreement under tab number 6, uncontrollable forces. Okay? So under here, it reads that those uncontrollable forces include, but are not limited to, it's under number 6, right in the middle, limited to fire, flood, earthquakes, explosions, act of war, etc. So all of this is fine, but there is in between transportation or equipment delays. Why could that be an uncontrollable force?
It's a good question. I can get the answer from them for you to at the town council meeting. Without fear of misspeaking, a lot of the things, depending on the service or the equipment that we might need, they have subcontractors that they use. So for unique or special equipment, they're going to get that from another company. They might not necessarily have it in-house.
But they're not moving debris, they're just monitoring it. So are they saying that, if the monitor person that we are paying, let's say his car breaks down and he cannot perform the monitoring.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's a uncontrollable force.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm saying is when you read this sentence, it goes from fire, flood, earthquakes, explosion, act of war, act of God, lightning, epidemic, war, riot, civil disturbances, sabotage, act of terrorism, governmental actions, etc. I think this is all clear. But there's in between, they kind of sneaked in this transportation or equipment delays, and I have a problem with that.
It could be the ability to show up if they're blocked roads,
I think
flooding,
we
stuff
want
like
to
that.
have that
But I'll clarify
clarification
that.
in writing, what that exactly means.
Absolutely.
That's
that
a very
is a
broad
good.
thing, and it gives them a lot of leeway, and I don't like that.
Okay, I will have that clarified for the town council.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions, concerns? Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so
Thank
this
you.
motion carried. Thank you, Brian. Next item under new business, under C, tab 5, review and discussion of the draft Kiowa Resort Associates franchise agreement for the East Beach Club. So let me give, that's probably you then talking, right? But let me give you a brief update here. So I think it was end of last year that I discovered we don't have actually a contract with the Kiowa Island Club as it relates to the beach club, the East Beach Club, as it relates to them using the beach for their, lounge chairs and umbrella setup, like we have with the resort and with Island Beach Services. So after, a lot of discussions and then asking Matt to provide a contract draft, this is basically what you see in front of you, not in the document, but in the email that I think Petra provided earlier this morning or last night, I don't remember.
So I sent the updated
Or
version
you
last
did,
night.
okay, good. Okay, so Luke, you have to look at the email and not what is in your folder, okay? But what is in your folder also gives you a little bit of an idea of the general structure and also what we want to see as performance from the Kiowa Island Club as it relates to overnight storage along the beach, along the dune lines, et cetera, in particular. So can I have a motion to, no, we actually don't need a
Yeah,
motion.
I don't think we.
It's actually just a discussion, so. So the topics really are A, but please correct me if I'm wrong. A is, do we want to limit storage of equipment along the beach, along the dune line? And second, what is going to be the appropriate fee that the Kiowa Island Club has to pay also in comparison to Island Beach Services, in comparison to the resort, what they should pay us for being allowed to use the beach at their discretion within the boundaries that this agreement sets, of course, so that we would waive the requirement that we have in our ordinances right now that actually nothing is allowed to be stored overnight along the beach and dune line. Okay? So those are the two topics, so.
For a little bit, for additional context for Councilmember Farrell, is want to try to, as best practicable as we can, align this agreement with the agreement with the resort in front of the sanctuary and as well as Island Beach Services. They're not going to be completely apples to apples, particularly with regard to Island Beach Services, but we should have them conform as much as possible. This is the one that we don't have an agreement with. There are already existing agreements with the resort and Island Beach Services, and those will be coming up over the next year or two. Sure. And so we can revisit any issues to further conform at that point in time.
So, and to add to this, so my proposal was to actually have this agreement in front of you run until March of '26. Mm-hmm. And the reason for this is that's when the Kiowa Resort contract expires and will be up for renewal. So then with this timing, we would have both of them coming up for renewal in case we want to make changes.
So I have a bunch of questions. Maybe if I just read through the questions, some might be obvious to you guys and maybe some might be thought-provoking, but let me just read through all of them. It's 6 of them. So first was, how is the fee determined? Second,
Can we do this one, Stephanie, if you would explain?
that easy?
Yes, and I will, Dorota, please correct me if there's anything I misspeak about. So how the fee is determined is that we look at Island Beach Services, which we have a franchise agreement with. We've take their amount of their contract. We then looked at how many public boardwalks we have. So right now, we were told by our staff that we have 38 public boardwalks. So literally all we did was we took Island Beach Services contract amount, which is $330,000. It says or 30%, which is ever greater, but we just take the $330,000, divide that by 38, and then get the cost per boardwalk. And then in this case, we've updated because Kiowa Island Beach Club, they have 3 boardwalks. So then we essentially just took the per boardwalk cost and times it by 3 to get their costs.
And interesting enough, I don't know if that was using the same math. When you look at the contract for the resort, it's $7,500, which is more or less in that neighborhood for a single public boardwalk.
And it's because at that time, the Island Beach Services contract was less.
Exactly, it was 300,000, so that's
Okay.
why we came up with 7.5. Now.
As long as you guys are happy with the logic. There's a logic and.
There's a logic if
And
anyone
the
ever
logic is
asked.
that there are 3 boardwalks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So different to the resort who only pays for 1 boardwalk, here we would have 3, and that's the logic.
Why is the payment in arrears and not in advance?
Well, normally with Island Beach Services, it's because they have to provide their receipts.
Because
Is that what
theirs
I'm-
based on, it's either 330 or 30% of gross receipts from that year. So first they need to collect the money to see what's.
It could be it could be larger than the $330,000.
As an
Last
example,
year,
as
it
an
was
example, was
385 or something.
yeah, it was almost,
I know what the clubs is just fixed, right?
we just fixed, so the resort and the clubs will be just fixed.
Yes.
We're just basing it on Island Beach Services fixed costs, not the up
All
to.
3 the same.
But to your point, because it is fixed, it doesn't need to be in arrears. It could be paid
Yes.
in advance.
But
Just as
the
you think
approach we
about-
took was to treat all 3 the same,
Okay.
okay? To be fair to everybody, and since Island Beach Services is paid after, the resort is therefore also paid after, I believe, right?
So the resort's fee is flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But their payment time,
Oh, I don't know when they submit their, I mean, they can pay their, yeah.
Usually in April.
so they pay in advance.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's 2 approaches. One is to do the same for everybody. The other one
Right.
is, I could see, for beach services, I understand. For the other 2, we
Then we
could
should do
charge
the
them in
same, yeah.
advance or charge them June 30th and get the money earlier, and it wouldn't hinder those guys in their operations. They're
Correct.
large organizations.
Well, I would suggest if we do in fact charge resort in advance, that we can form the club agreement to
I don't even
that.
think we really charge them in advance. Is that
As
just
of
a due date they
As
pay?
of a certain date.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
basically, they have
but-
the use of our money for a year, so why not us getting one, why not January 1st?
Well, but again, I would recommend that we look at the Kiowa Island Resort contract again and use the same language. So whatever, because their payment might be different to what actually is in the contract.
Yeah, we actually have the same language. I don't even think, and I'll double check, in the resort, I don't think we have a date when they have to pay. We just have a flat amount they have to pay. They have just elected to pay us in April. But if we want to set a specific date, we
Okay,
can.
Then we should.
Correct.
And then we should set that in advance.
Correct.
Okay, I thought it was December as well for the resort. So,
Okay.
Okay.
I was confused, so here's my question. Why is the entire franchise area shown on the map? Why don't we just show for this example, the franchise area that they're responsible for? It was the blue, and I know you highlighted between points 6 and 7, or C and G.
We can. This is just what we've done. So essentially, if you look at the Night Heron franchise agreement, which is the resorts, we have the same Exhibit A. It just shows theirs. So all we just did with this is essentially almost take,
So consistency in exhibits.
Correct.
But
we
I
can-
think that's a good point. We should probably revise this exhibit just to show the service area with regard to this contract when we renew the future
Well, the
contract.
service area is defined.
it's
under number
defined in the
5.
agreement.
No,
but
I
we-
understand, so we want to, if we want to
But
have
you
a
don't have to show the
visual
whole
exhibit,
map.
we don't need it, but if we want to have a visual
So,
exhibit, it
I
should
mean,
just be focused
that,
on.
that is that is to be fixed in probably 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
if we
yeah.
want to just have an exhibit showing theirs, not a problem.
That would be great. It just makes it clearer. Also, this is an aside, not relative to this, but the way I saw the map, it looked like we could have a franchise area halfway down Captain Sam Spit. I think we ought to take that up at a different point and not have a franchise area down that far. Because that's, if you think about that being a kind of a wildlife preserve type thing, we don't need, and I've seen trucks drive down there, we don't really need that. And we don't need people renting chairs to go down there either. That's a separate topic, sorry.
That's part of the Island Beach Services.
I think he's suggesting that when we revisit IBS, we make sure that there are.
Okay, back to an important point. What are the access points, and are they defined for the contract, for the vehicles to go on and off the beach?
No, the emergency ones access, I don't think is defined in here. When we update this, it will show the actual 3 locations for the boardwalks, but for the emergency vehicle access, I would have to ask Brian. I don't know where they
I mean,
Right beside
it is right beside it.
Right beside
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I would say we define it for the contract, so they're not coming in someplace, they're coming in right by the beach.
That's the only place where they can come in for.
Yeah, we have an agreement
A
with
few
regards
miles.
to, we have an agreement, a different ordinance that defines emergency beach access for the vehicles. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, there is a definition for emergency.
Right, so that's not, yeah. We have an
As a-
ordinance for that, a different ordinance for
I mean,
that.
to your point, I mean, theoretically, they could use the beach walk or emergency access and drive all the way down. As a practical matter, since they're bringing equipment in and
Yeah,
out, they're
and
using
they might
emergency
be.
beach access right adjacent to the.
I understand.
East
I'm
Beach
just
Club. Yeah.
bringing up
But
a point
we
that
can
it gives
add
them
that.
flexibility
Yeah, sure. Yep.
that we might want to define that
Yep.
the only access is the one by the beach walk
Yep.
for their vehicle access.
No, we would
Yeah,
define
right.
that the only access point for them is the one right beside the beach club.
That's what, I'm sorry, that, if I didn't say that, that's what I meant to say. I think
Yeah,
what it
for the
is-
emergency
access.
access, for them to use that? Is that what you're asking? Not in this, but in our ordinance that we have that deals with emergency vehicle access. You're
I'm talking
saying
about this contract.
No, this contract.
This
you want
franchise.
to add this in here, that the only access they can use is emergency vehicle access?
I'm asking the question
At
to
the
all
beach
of
club,
us.
yes.
Yes,
beach club.
that
Which
specific.
is what they're using today.
Yeah,
point
what
of
they're
access.
using
For the two
today.
vehicles that are operating for them on the beach.
Okay.
Okay?
We don't define the type of vehicle they can use or the markings the vehicle has to have. Should we do that?
The prior, well, actually, the resort contract includes a sentence that says the town would need to approve the vehicles that are operating on the beach. You took that out.
We deleted that.
So-
We could, I'm not sure whether we kind of want to micromanage that. About markings and everything, they're only there putting it out early in the morning.
Then go back.
And then they, at the very end of the day, they remove. I don't know what vehicles they do use, but it's not like they're transiting during the day. Island Beach Services is transiting during the day, and theirs are marked.
Town of Keo is, and they're marked. and-
Yes, it is.
I just, again, I'm new, I'm asking questions that I didn't see
We-
in
we
here.
can- we can
How you
add
guys
that.
think about this?
I'm just not sure what the purpose of marking would be for the fact that they're just putting them out early in the morning and returning them at the end of the day, but.
Well, we are requiring them to wear a uniform, so we can certainly also
Or a name
require
tag.
them to put a sign on the side of the tractor.
Would you be okay if they drove their, Toyota Avalon on the beach to do the things, or should it?
the
Well,
moment
just so
they
you
are-
know, in order for them to be able to drive their vehicle on the beach, they have to go through a training through our beach patrol, and there's only, based on our ordinance, you can only drive specific vehicles on the truck, so they can't just take,
And by the way, the agreement specifically says the franchisee has to conform with all provisions of the municipal
right,
code.
so they're not going to just, yeah.
And the last one maybe becomes irrelevant, I just thought, kind of to Michael's work earlier, should there be electric Gator-type vehicles?
That was
so
in the earlier draft, but was taken out.
Okay.
I'm not sure why.
Sorry
My
for all the-
question-
Sorry for all the
No,
education.
no. So my questions are twofold. One, why have we now taken out water sport equipment?
We put it in, I wasn't aware that the beach club offered it.
Yeah. They have kayaks, they have paddle boards, they have, I don't know what else.
They do have, okay, then those were
I
inadvertently.
mean, in the summer, only in the peak seasons, they offer.
Inadvertently taken
and
out, they
it's
should be
a
added
very-
back in.
It's a very important part also of their kids program.
Okay.
Okay,
It should-
so
should
we
be
should
added back
definitely
in.
continue
Yes.
allowing this.
Yeah.
There's of course no kite surfing and stuff like that, but it's regular
Should limit just to
kayaks
those
and-
kayaks
and
and
surfboards
surf-
and stuff like that,
okay.
yeah. So we should add this in, please, under number 4,
Yep.
Stephanie, and also again, back in under Exhibit B. Okay? So the other two questions are more conceptual. So it is mentioned under Section 6, D as in dad, number 2, that the franchisee may store no more than X lounge chairs overnight on the beach. Any lounge chair stored overnight on the beach must be stacked, secured, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to define the X. So my proposal was to say a single line setup in between the 25-foot buffer from their property lines. So they can have these chairs nicely, neatly stacked, but only this, which is probably about 30, right? And very different to, for example, this Monday, I stopped counting everything that was there set up. I stopped counting at 200. So there were more than 200 chairs, both their lounge chairs and these blue chairs. Anyway, so should we define it as a single row setup in between the buffers?
It does say single line, see word of the dune
Yeah.
line now.
Yeah. But here under 6D2, we would need to define the number.
Well, yes, we do
Or-
need to
or the
define.
terminology.
Yeah,
Okay.
do need to define the number. By the way, you don't, be careful on the 25-foot, because remember, their property line is all the way back to the pool.
Yeah, I mean the east and west
Oh, okay.
property lines. Yeah.
Well,
Because
those are areas of operation, those aren't property lines.
No, I know,
Okay,
but I mean, when you take the property lines and
Yeah,
would dot
yes,
them
yeah,
further onto the
right.
beach, that's where the 25-foot setback starts. Okay, is my understanding at least. So then the next question to the members here is, do we want to allow storage boxes or not? My opinion is no. Storage boxes are currently used mostly for these little tables, I believe, and in particular for the umbrellas. But at the same time, they're also bringing in umbrellas every morning with their tractor and trailer. So in my opinion, it would not be too much to ask to actually not allow them to store umbrellas overnight at the beach, and that would lead to the elimination of storage boxes. So the only thing that you would see along the beach or dune line would those minimum amount of chairs that we just talked about.
So
Things-
I don't really have a passion about storage boxes one way or the other. I think in my mind, the argument for them would be maybe it reduces vehicular beach traffic, and that would probably be a good thing, but I don't really have a passion one way or the other. So if they didn't have to bring umbrellas in or take them back out,
They come anyway, so.
I also don't have a strong view about it, and if the chairman does, that would be fine with me. I just note that we
won't
do
recommend
allow
it,
storage
so.
boxes for both KIGR and IBS, but that doesn't mean we have to do that going forward. Well, for IBS, we probably do, but
And then my last question is, we are talking about lounge chairs. So the Kiowa Island Club has two different type of lounge chairs. One are these beige, large ones that you cannot fold. Those are the big ones. This is the eyesore. And then they have more recently bought a larger number of those folding blue chairs, similar to the Island Beach Services. So our terminology here of lounge chairs include what? Only those large beige lounge chairs, or also the blue folding ones?
we could just simply eliminate chairs or just say seating devices, but I think the intent is to cover both.
I don't have a passion, Michael. Mr. Chairman, I don't care.
Okay, then we leave it as it is, lounge chairs, and leave them to the side.
And
Okay, that's
that
fine.
we would define both as lounging chairs.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion necessary here? Questions?
I think it's relevant. I'll ask it. So it came up in one of the emails about the sand parking lot. And I looked for a property map, and I think I found one. The sand parking lot is not part of the beach club's property. So that third beach access, the third boardwalk, and it's also in what you would call maritime forest area, the parking lot. I think we ought to talk about that as a separate subject, and should that parking lot still be there? And what's the
So-
arrangement between the golf course and the beach club?
So it was and I talked with Brian about this, and I talked with Jim about this. You're correct. The parking that you're referring to adjacent to the club is used essentially for club members to be able to access that, essentially for dogs. They can park there, they don't have to cut through the club, and they can access the beach there. It's my understanding that that was put in for PGA. Essentially now, though, the club uses that, it's on the resort's property. I don't know what type of arrangement they have, but the club is using that for club members. So in this agreement, we're currently charging them for 3 boardwalks.
Yeah, my point is more, that parking lot is in maritime forest space. temporary use for the PGA is great. It probably should have been replanted back in Maritime Forest. Fauna, whatever the word it plants. And it's a question for the council, I think, should we be allowing this to continue?
So
Or
I
it's
don't,
really a maritime
separate
space?
from continuing, the temporary use ordinance, we are, will be taking up in full council today, would address that issue at least on a go-forward basis.
Okay.
Because it would require restoration. And it-
But it's a good point.
Yeah,
We
it
should
is.
go back
Yep.
to 2012, because that's, I think, when it was established, the first PGA.
Yeah, I don't know
Right.
if it was the first one or the
So go back to
second one.
2012, what exactly the decision was in the planning department. Was it a temporary use? Was it not a temporary use?
You can try to find it, but in 2012, Charleston County was our planning department. So I have to see,
okay.
at this point, I don't know if we can go back that far, you know. It becomes now, I think today, we have to probably talk with our legal counsel to say, is there anything that we can do retrospectively if this was
Yeah.
approved and is now
These are,
ongoing?
like, we've raised this issue with regard to a lot of our informal or dirt or gravel parking areas around the island. They appear to be all non-conforming uses and facilities right now because they would not be compliant with any new zoning-related application in terms of their design. So I had a good question as to whether we can do anything after the fact now, as opposed to just if they reapply.
And one
But
thing,
it's-
take consideration, that third boardwalk was approved. We looked at it and approved that boardwalk as
that
well.
question.
I don't really have a problem with the boardwalk.
Yeah.
Well, the question was, because it's debatable, is on what property it is. So that's why.
What property? And then again,
It is. It definitely is.
is the parking lot permitted and has that permit expired? And that's Maritime Forest area, all of those things.
And just for the record, so this parking spot is used by members to walk their dogs, by their employees, and for storage, and overflow during peak days.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Okay.
Just so that I understand, so on the, because I was taking notes, so under D2, when we had X, did you guys come up with an X? Or you
Yeah,
had?
we'll talk about
You'll
this.
talk-
I
okay.
took notes about
Okay,
this.
thank
so
you.
Don't worry about it. Okay. Can we close this item?
Yes, sir.
Right? Yes. Okay. All right. Next agenda item, Chairman's Report. I have nothing else to add. Following agenda item is Treasurer's Report. Dorota, your monthly budget report, please.
Yes, thank you. So I have the 10 months through end of April. And as of end of April, we have collected about 13.2 million in revenues, which is about $1 million higher when compared to last year to date. And there is two items, pretty much interest income and permits from special project contribute to that difference. When you look at the other revenues, they're pretty much consistent to last year. As of at 85% of the year elapsed at the end of April, our expenditures were about 8.8 million, and they about 40, pretty much the same as last year, 44,000 higher than last year to date, and account for 53% of the current year budgeted expenditures. This number is a little skewed because we have that 5 million placeholder, so we're never gonna reach that.
So if you take out the 5 million, what would be the
We
correct
about
percentage?
78%, so we close. There were a
Okay,
couple
but we are
of,
still lower than the 83% of 10 months of 12.
yes.
Okay.
There are a couple of items that will be higher than the budget, and as far as the expenditures, and this variance will carry through the end of the year as waste management and as our contract with Trident started earlier than we expected. Professional services because of the legal cost being higher than expected, and charitable contributions, as we just had this extra applicant last month that was approved, that was missed in the regular process, and we had the non-budgeted cost for the storm cleanup in December. The rest of the expenditures are pretty much in line with what amended budget is, and we pretty much in a good shape. If there's any questions to the report, I just want to give you a few updates that I have for some projects that the finance is working. Yesterday, I've sent out the letters to the 10 companies that are the biggest contributors to our business license revenues. And our auditor is going to perform the income verification audit beginning of July. So hopefully,
I thought it was June.
I'm sorry?
I thought it was originally scheduled for June.
Well, they changed it. They closed in the first week of July, so they want to do second, third week of July. But the letters went out today, and the companies have till the end of the month to provide the information. So hopefully they, update us maybe in August. And another project that I've been working on, my department has been working on, is this business license compliance that based on a list from the KICA that we got. And so we got to the point that we have looked through the whole list. We sent number of notifications to the businesses that have not have a license. And we've collected about $153,000 of business license revenue and got about 250 businesses in compliance. There is still a big number, about 600 number of businesses that have not responded, that probably, not all of them, but some of them still need a business license. So we need to take additional steps to get them in compliance.
What do we do about those 600? Can they continue to come, on the island into town and do business? Or how do we manage and enforce that, I guess, is the question.
So that is a good question. So what we can do, we can send them some kind of either a penalty notification or a citation that they have not obtained a business license and pretty much ignore all the contact with us. Some of them may not need it because some companies, for example, like a transportation company doesn't need a business license. So some may not need it, some were here maybe just for one day to get a bid or something. But I want to say probably more than 50% of it should have license based on this project, how the data
Number of
shows.
So,
Yes.
yeah, Councilmember Farrell, we're have devoted a fair amount of time at staff level to discuss, how best to move forward on these. There are a couple of issues, not the least of which are the staff resources available to follow up on all of these. But what we want to try to move to is a notice goes out from Darota's department that you need to file. You need to get your license. And by the way, there's a license fee associated with that, and there's also revenues that you need to pay on gross receipts. And the next letter that would go out would be essentially a violation notice. And then the question is, because our ordinance does allow her office at Darota directly to recommend enforcement action to the municipal court. There's a separate issue as to whether a summons needs to be issued by a code enforcement officer and who that is, but we are trying to work through what the best processes are in that regard.
Thank you.
And Dorota, when we started all of this, I remember the data that we received from KICA gives us insight in how many times a vehicle
Correct.
of a particular company has entered.
That's correct.
So those 500 that you still, or 600 that you still, have not received a response, you could actually rank them by
Yes.
the number of entries onto the island.
Correct.
And work your way down from there.
Correct, yes. Yes, and I am going to talk to our prosecutor. He's doing some research to as far as other jurisdictions, how they approach that, and help me develop a plan with how to do it, and, what the resources we have.
And what we're trying to ascertain as part of the discussions with the town prosecutor and the town attorney, and you may have to have a discussion with the municipal judge, is what is the requisite level of proof to be able to enforce a violation? Whether, in the past, we've kind of taken the approach that you had to have a code enforcement officer on site, they're working without a valid business license, and issue a ticket at that point in time. That is inefficient and doesn't capture everything. The idea should be if we have information from Kika that they've either gone through the gate and or even more so, they've gotten an encroachment permit to do work on the island, whether that is sufficient evidence to demonstrate a violation, in which case you don't have to then go out separately and hope you catch them doing work on island. Yeah.
However, our ordinance states doing business or intent to do business. So as we, in the past, what we had, for example, like one of my colleagues now, she's going through Legends, and if you're advertising your business, that's your intent to do business on the island. And in the past, the judge took it as it was a valid intention, and they were charged guilty. So it's a big project, but I feel like we brought in a lot of money, and
I was surprised about that.
yeah.
And there's potentially, particularly if you start assessing fines, which can be accrue on a daily basis, the number could get pretty
absolutely.
large.
Yeah, yeah,
I can see where there's a lot of work, so thank you.
yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
mean, I don't know if the objective should be to collect fines or bring people into compliance.
It's always,
Yeah.
always to bring people in
compliance.
compliance. I think the issue is, at some point, if people simply continue to do work and do not comply, then the notice goes out. And by the way, every day, it
Yeah.
starts the fee, the fine accumulates.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dorota. That concludes the treasurer's report. Any citizen comments? Still not. Committee member comments. Brad?
This is actually just, I may need to have Brian come up. The issue is with regard to the repair of about 200 yards of the leisure bike trail from the KIRE intersection down towards the Riverview intersection. That's essentially a fail right now. It's a lot of root intrusion, and it's very narrow and bumpy. To repave that, not clear why it wasn't done when we did the rest of the 3/4 mile of Beachwalker Drive, but the idea is to repave and conform that. I think the question right now is whether it could come under the current year budget or not. There are some resources available. It's a timing issue, or whether it might be an issue that's presented for the 2024-25 budget.
That's right. So just a little bit of background for the both of you too. The area, it's about 750 linear feet of bike path that we would be improving. I did go back. We had True Luck do the work. It was about 1.5 or 2 years ago on the other side of the bike. For the rest of the bike path, I compared those numbers with the quote that they gave me to do this work that we're talking about. The quote for this 750 linear feet of is $43,325. And Mr. Belt, I misspoke about the original project that they did. It was just under $300,000 that they did. So it puts it a little bit better perspective, or at least
Better, but still
better,
seems
but still not
way too
quite
high.
all the way there.
seems way too high.
Yes, and I don't disagree with that. It was, there was the bike path,
300,000
there's a
was more
couple
than
of storm, curb inlets that they did to a little bit of striping.
They created the new right turn lane, correct? Part of this project to the.
Essentially, right, yeah,
So it was a little bit more.
into Inlet Cove over there, the first inlet.
It was the right turn lane that we had created for the Charleston County parks so that when people are on the road, they can get off to the right, that kind of.
Yeah, so I mean, that 300,000, probably, maybe half of that was actually attributable to.
The milling and paving section of the physical bike path, that's right.
Yes, yeah.
So one piece that will get this cost down a little bit is, this was based off of widening it by 2 feet to match what we did. We widened the bike path on the other side to 8 feet from what it was 6 feet. So maybe we do, maybe we don't. If we wanted to maintain that 6 foot width, that would bring the cost down a little bit, a nominal cost probably. But what we do know is that we have a cost that it's a starting point. We know we're not going to go above this number. I can get this down from this contractor. However, based off the number, it looks like we would need to bid it out because it goes, I'm not going to take $30,000 off of this number. So that's just kind of where we stand
So
right now.
then if it needs to be rebid, then it's not going to happen in this year's budget.
And I don't know if they could get it done in the next 3 weeks for this year,
This year, next year.
Well, it just means that we would need to then put it into the 2024.
Yeah, it's easier.
24, 25 budget rather than, because there were funds, if we could have just gotten it done this year and it was a much lower number, we had budget funds available in the current budget year to be able to potentially do that now, but that looks like that's not going to be happening.
Yeah, and I would probably say that they couldn't do this in 3 weeks.
And it would be helpful to get a.
Even then, because we go by cash basis, so the invoice would come in July anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, but still, that's not, the point more is, I mean, I understand the dear focus on Beachwalker Drive, right? But is this really our premier area of concern? So I looked at this and said, yeah, I mean, it can require some repair. I don't think that there's a problem. What the real problem is what I mentioned 2 months ago, and I haven't seen anything happening yet, is the fact that we have a leisure trail along Kiowa Island Parkway between the former access road to the PGA parking and the entrance to Freshfields, which is a low-lying area for reasons I don't understand why that was done. But every heavy rainstorm now, this area floods by more than a foot, forces people, and standing there for a while because there doesn't seem to be drainage, people have to leave the leisure trail, go on the Kiowa Island Parkway, drive their bikes or walk against the traffic with children and everything, and can then only basically be re-merged into the leisure trail shortly before the access point to Freshfields. That's a safety concern. That should be the #1 priority and not always Beachwalker Drive.
Well, apples, not apples to apples. Yes, we do need to address Kiowa Island Parkway as well. The Beachwalker Drive trail is a fail right now, given the heavy root intrusion, and if you walk it, the Councilmember Berner did along with me and agreed that this needs to be addressed right now. It's a safety issue.
I'm not saying it doesn't need to be addressed. The question is the priority.
Mr. Chairman.
The priority.
Mr. Chairman, let me finish. This area also is underwater every time it rains. So, but having said all that, I completely agree that if we're going to look at remedying beach leisure trails, KIP needs to be addressed as well, because this little stretch of beach, this 200-yard stretch of Beachwalker leisure trail is also underwater. It probably needs to be raised when it's repaved, at least along a portion. And I agree, it's a safety issue for KIP. So what we can do is put this together in a budget in a budget proposal, I mean, a budget line item for the 2024-25 budget.
Well, my recollection is that 2 months ago we already decided, and I haven't seen not anything. So, Brian, where are you with this?
I don't have an excuse for why we haven't progressed with this now, but what I can say is as of recently, I've gotten in contact with somebody that we've worked with in the past who has directed me to a couple of drainage people that can do kind of drainage assessments on roadways and bike paths. So I have initiated some conversations with them to come out and take a look to see what the issue is. Is it drainage? Is it a low spot that we just need to raise? So we are getting the ball rolling with answering that question on what's causing the issue, and then we'll know how to go forward.
Is there a timing on meeting with those folks and starting to get an answer about the low spot?
I'm hoping to have a meeting on the books with them for next week, for us to meet out there and take a look and discuss what we need to do from their standpoint.
If you get a chance, call me. I'd love to just kind of learn about that stuff, so
I'd be happy to. When I get that squared away with them, I'll let you know
get it
when
on the
it is.
calendar, just call me, let me know what the date is. I'd love to go out and just see.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments, Brad?
For the budget purposes, we have the second reading in a couple of hours. Should I add something to, I do have a sheet that lines up all the changes. Should I add something for, we have 50,000, currently we have 50,000 placeholder for incidental work.
For road, that's
Roads
roads
kind
and
of,
bridges.
yes.
The question
Roads and
is,
bridges.
we don't have yet a good estimate and whether, you know, what kind of, but placeholder we would want to add in for, because it's not repaving, it would not otherwise need to be repaved, but to elevate or somehow deal with drainage issues for those portions of the KIP leisure trail.
Not sure how you would solve the drainage issue. Because
I
you know,
don't
it's-
either.
It's a low spot there.
Yes,
because
it's a-
the road is
Yep.
curved into it, and so
So-
you can probably just elevate it, so.
But the issue is, which we'll have to try to figure out if we want to put in a placeholder, it's a blind, I mean, we just don't have any idea what the number.
It's fine. We can always add it later on when we have the real
okay.
numbers.
We
I
can
don't think
redo,
it's,
okay.
I mean, we have to make the decision anyway about the project, then we can also decide that we are adding it to the budget. I don't think that's a major headache. Brian, while you're up there, let me ask two questions. So we had this electric ATV discussion the last time. Any progress?
We have made progress. We haven't made a purchase yet. We've found some that we have attempted to negotiate with, like the top of the line, which would be awesome for us to have. We haven't gotten so far anybody to come down to the agreed upon price that was set by you all. There's one that we're still working on right now, that I have Michael Nardelli working on it. I'll have to see where his last conversation was with them. However, we don't have to have that top of the line. There are options that we could, fall back on to stay within that budget, if we needed to do that. But of course, we'd like to try to get, the best we can for the
the
money.
objective of our discussion the last time was not to get you the top of the line, but to find a vehicle that can easily be maintained
Yeah,
in the vicinity.
absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And this top of the line is close to that budget number, and there are multiple companies in Charleston that work on this specific brand and model. So that was one reason why we were going after it.
Which brand is that?
It's Polaris.
Polaris, okay.
So we were trying to solve for multiple things, and whether we can or not within our budget, because part of the issue is some of the lower cost EVs have a much lower effective range, which would make them less practical for going kind of up and down the island all day. And so, because I think it was you, Councilmember Farrell, who had said, in the day, if we can make this work, fine, but you can always get a $10,000 perfectly functional gas EV. And
I regret saying that, but yes, I said that.
Yes, and thank you for making that commentary. Thank you. Okay, great. So keep working on it. I just wanted to know where you stand.
Yes,
And then my last question also to you, Brian. So we now have for a month Trident, doing our trash collection.
Yes, sir.
since I'm working in my area on applying all these stickers on, for household trash and for recycling, I had a good chance to observe them. Have not seen anything that would make me concerned, except that sometimes I see them driving a little bit faster than 30 miles an hour on the Kiowa Island Parkway or the Governor's Drive. That's the only thing. But have we had, or have you seen a significant decline in complaints from community members about their trash collection? What
Absolutely.
is your status after 4 weeks?
Status is where we had expected and hoped that it would be. We have absolutely seen a remarkable decline in missed stops that are getting called in. I'm getting so many less emails from Julie, copied about how we're getting missed, to Trident about a missed stop. And it actually is very, very encouraging, given that they had a learning curve coming in too, that we were expecting the first 4 weeks to be a little bit rough while they learned, but they did a fantastic job of coming out prior to their contract starting and learning the routes and finding, challenge areas and solving that before they came to it. So I'm very happy. Thank you for reporting that to me, that you guys have seen a difference too, because we certainly have on the staff level.
And it's not just, they don't walk, these guys don't walk through yards to get to serve to the trash cans.
They're very respectful.
Little things like, because for raccoons, you put a brick on top of your trash cans, they actually replace them on the lids rather than the other guys who just threw them on the ground and just left them down there. I mean, just across the board thus far.
That's good. I appreciate that.
And to add to this, I've seen, because of my driving around and putting these stickers on, I saw them actually stopping, running back if something dropped out and put it into so I've never seen that with Carolina Waste. So,
Thank you.
it seems to be a good choice we made.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you. I appreciate
just
that.
to provide some balance, and I hate to bring another personal anecdotal, they're not perfect, and there's some call fatigue that's happening where they're still missing my residents with
Okay.
recycling in particular, pretty much every week. And my wife is embarrassed to call Julie anymore. So
You can switch
it's
to
not
me.
perfect.
You can.
It's not perfect, but it's
You can wear my phone line out too if
okay.
you.
I'll have her call you.
No, but thank you for telling me that.
They
we'll
missed like
certainly-
the last 4 weeks in a row. Now,
well, okay.
in their
That's-
defense, it's a short street, and there's only one trash can on there that's active generally.
Okay.
But it's visible, it's out, we literally put it in the street so they can see it as they drive by. So sorry, it's not perfect, but I'm sure it's better, no question, it's gotta be better than
That's
what it
good.
was.
No, I just wanted to have a little bit.
We'll make sure we address that with them.
Okay,
Hopefully once
any
and for
other
all.
comments? Luke?
Yeah, again, I thank Dorada for all the work she's done with, all of this stuff you've done for Ways and Means. Very much appreciated, and thanks for helping me with some other things earlier. I would like to come back and, at the appropriate time, revisit this parking issue where the sand parking is next to the club. We seem like we always have parking issues, and this is one that's, for me, this is kind of egregious because they used to use parking on the other side, and they sold that lot for $7 million, and now it's another example of making money and kind of abusing parking privileges. And maybe that overstates it,
What
but
we don't know is whether or not, one would assume that there has to be some kind of agreement or understanding between the club and the resort, because you access that through the club, but that actual lot is on resort property.
that actual lot is on resort property, and it's in a maritime forest area.
Yeah.
So I'd love to revisit those at the appropriate time.
And so we can talk with, I guess maybe talk with Roger, because one of the things I'm imagining is that they're going to want to keep that lot the way it is for the 2030 and maybe the
I would
2028
stop you
PPA.
right there, or they can plan it, and for 8 years, it can be great, and if they want to apply for a permit to use it again in 2031, great, but just because that's on a docket 10 years away, 8 years away,
Yeah.
it's not sufficient for me.
Well, like I said, we'll talk with our attorney because we may have allowed it and approved it back in 2012, I don't know. So we just have to kind of see what's
let's-
going on.
let's find
We can
Just
do
find the
anything.
facts.
Yeah.
Let's find
we'll
the
find the
facts. If it's not a concern, we solved it.
Yep.
If it is a concern and an overreach, then we will deal with it. Okay, anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Nothing.
thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. We adjourn the meeting.